Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to another episode of Hoopstradamus. Kind of talking basketball time machine today, going back in time, talking with the all-time leader in steals in a game with 11. It's Kendall Gill of the Flying Illini. How you doing, man? Thanks for coming on the show.
I am doing great. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. So let's start where no one expects us to start. Everyone knows you for your playing days with the Nets and the Hornets and the Flying Illini, but you're trying to get in the boxing ring against Jake Paul, and it looks like he's ducking you. So what's going on there, man?
Yeah, I think he is. He wants to. I don't think he thinks I have enough Instagram followers, so he refuses to get in the ring with somebody that's high risk and what he perceives as low IG turnout. But he doesn't realize that if he does sign the fight with me, the whole NBA is going to get behind me. And believe it or not, the NBA is bigger than Jake Paul.
I mean, let's put it this way. I know who you are. I don't really know who Jake Paul is. So,
right.
But I think
exactly.
You take him.
But the thing is, he doesn't know that.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, the dangerous games we play these days with it's all about likes and follows, but I hope that happens. How long have you been in this boxing community? We just mentioned before we started rolling that we have a mutual acquaintance with Macho and Joshua Hernandez.
Yeah, I've known Macho and Josh for almost 16 years. So, I got involved heavy into boxing about 17 years ago. And, I had 4 pro fights and, here I am today still doing the same thing, still staying in shape.
What's your record as a pro?
4-0.
Okay.
Yeah, 4-0.
In what weight class you in?
I fought 2 at cruiserweight and 2 at heavyweight.
Okay, so I see why Jake Paul doesn't want to fight you. You have any messages? I might have to tag him in this.
Yeah, I've sent him all the messages that I could possibly send. I've called him out for a whole month, 5 or 6 times, and I'm sure he's gotten it. So, what else can I do? I can't do anything else.
Yeah, well, he may be ducking you in the social media world because he can't be ducking you in the ring. So we'll see. But I'm rooting for it to happen. All right.
Yep.
Anyway, let's get back into it. Let's start with a little bit of Chicago Bulls talk. I got to say, I've been super excited. The first 2 games were a little rough, but, I talked with Sam Smith on the show a few months ago, kind of doing a season preview, and he was saying that this team has a legit chance to be knocking on that door as far as a playoff team. What are your thoughts on that?
I think so. The way that they have competed with every team in the league thus far this season. I mean, you look at they competed with the Los Angeles Lakers. They competed with the Los Angeles Clippers. And every team they play, with the exception of Indiana, Atlanta, and Milwaukee, they've been in the game, and they have actually lost 3 games because they caused the loss. They defeated themselves. So I think that this team is poised to make a playoff run. They're strong from top to bottom. They got a strong bench. They have a strong starting 5, and now all they need is just time. And once they spend maybe 2-3 years together, you're going to start to see this franchise really take off again.
What are the big differences you see in the Billy Donovan era versus the previous regime?
Players really like to play for him. It's like he works on them mentally. Like, he doesn't like yell or take you out of the game and sit you down for long periods of time if you've done something wrong. He just tells you, and you get it, and he comes right back to you, and you go right back in the game. That's key to be a player's coach, when they know what you're disciplining for, but they know also that they're going to come back to you, and you're going to go back in the game.
Right on. Now, I kind of look at this team, and it's an interesting construction because it seems like they have a lot of really good offensive players, but some of those guys they're improving defensively, don't get me wrong. But do you think this construction is sustainable long term, or do you think that they're going to be looking to make some moves after this season?
Well, the team's always looking to make moves to get better, but I
Right.
think that the core, the way that it is, if they have a successful season this year, which all things point to that, that they will keep the core together, but add little pieces here and there.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Definitely. And what does success look like this year? Is it about record, or do you think a successful season is represented by something else?
I think a successful season is measured by making the playoffs
Okay.
and beating the record that they had last year. When the new front office came in, they said that this team is better than the record that it shows this season, and I totally agree with them.
Okay. And then one thing I got to bring up, especially for my guys working on this podcast with me, we have a big group chat, and we're a lot of us are Bulls fans. I'm out here in Colorado. We got another guy in Alabama. We got some Heat fans in there, so
Mm-hmm.
relatively well represented. But most of us are big Bulls fans, and we're watching most of these games. And one thing that's come up is this combination of Kobe White and Zach LaVine. And I think in a best case scenario, you can kind of have a Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum type two dog attack. But sometimes it looks like they're just a little too similar. You saw some breakdowns at the end of the game with the Oklahoma City Thunder matchup where they weren't really seeing each other. But what do you
Mm-hmm.
think about that duo? Or do you think maybe there needs to be a more traditional point guard involved?
No, I like the duo, but I think that Zach LaVine needs to handle the basketball most of the time.
Okay.
I don't think Kobe is a great ball handler at this point. Yes, he can dribble, but sometimes he has a tendency to turn the basketball over because his handle isn't good enough yet
Mm-hmm.
to be a pure point guard in the league. But you can't beat the amount of firepower that you have in that lineup with those two on the floor. Because they either one of them can go off for 30 on any given night.
Yeah, without a doubt. And when Kobe gets aggressive and when he's confidence is up, it seems like he's one of the more underrated, just pure scorers in the league. And I love that he can kind of like create his own shot off the dribble and a very modern attack. So I'm loving what we're seeing from them. And this kind of leads me into a natural transition here. Obviously, Kobe's a very young guy. You played for a very long time in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
When did you start to hit your prime? How long do you think it'll take Kobe?
I was I had pretty much hit it when I in my second year. For my second year, I averaged 20 plus a game, and ever since that time up until I was 30, probably about 33, I'd say that that's how long my prime lasted.
Okay.
When I was about 34, I could tell my legs weren't the same. I wasn't jumping as high and as easy as I once did. Um, so it lasted that long. I had a long prime.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, some great years with the Hornets and then the New Jersey Nets. I went back and watched some of those clips from the 98 playoffs round one against the
Mhm.
Chicago Bulls. And the GOAT, I got a virtual background behind me, but if you could see what's actually behind me, it's a giant thing of Michael Jordan, right? This guy's
Mhm.
larger than life. You got to play against him for years. What was
Mhm.
that like?
It was difficult, because he had no weaknesses. Um, then you throw him into the triangle offense,
Mm,
and that's that makes it twice as hard to guard him. Along with his physical attributes, his skill level, and that offense, man, it was quite difficult to guard him because you never knew what he was going to do. You didn't know whether he was going to take you to the basket. You didn't know whether he was going to shoot the basketball.
there's a lot of talk about, well, let's say legends, right? About some of his trash talk. Now, this particular story, you wouldn't have been on the Hornets anymore, but I've heard and read that he called Muggsy Bogues a midget. Have you
Yeah,
heard? Is this a true story?
yeah, I believe it is. But
Oh my goodness.
that's the way he is when he competes. you get the best of them, and
Mm.
unfortunately, that's what he called Muggsy.
I mean, Muggsy could play. Muggsy could play.
Yeah, Muggsy is a great player. Muggsy is
Yeah.
a great player. Yeah.
And that kind of takes me to this next one. I'm excited to hear your answer for this one. I kind of gave you a heads up on it. And so, if we had to make an all-time team of Kendall Gill teammates, a starting five, who's on that squad?
Starting five, I would pick Alonzo Mourning,
Right.
Larry Johnson, Gary Payton, and Kevin Garnett.
Oh yeah, yeah, KG. Can't go
Yeah,
wrong with that. And then of course yourself.
yeah, and then of course myself. Yeah,
Right on, man.
absolutely. Because we got to have somebody play the two guard position.
Yeah, yeah. That's a big lineup. So you throwing KG or Larry Johnson at the small forward there?
I'm gonna put Kevin Garnett at the small forward.
Okay, right on.
Larry Johnson at the power forward. Yeah.
Apart from Michael Jordan, and maybe if he's not your toughest assignment, that's a whole different answer for me. But who is the most challenging player to play against?
Mahmoud Abdul Rauf.
Okay.
Yeah, formerly Chris Jackson. You said you're out there in Denver.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was drafted. He was drafted by the Denver Nuggets, and he was actually the hardest player for me to guard.
Interesting.
Because yeah, he was just so fast and could shoot the basketball, and had moves that he could trick you. He was, he can go from a standstill to 100 miles an hour in a second. So he was great.
One of the things we do on this podcast sometimes, we'll go back and watch, hours of footage of old players, and we try to contextualize these players. And he's one of the guys that we've talked about who we actually think might thrive more in today's game than he would have in the era he played. You got more of a green light to play or to shoot the three. And that's a guy who is kind of maybe ahead of his time. What do you think about that?
Who is that?
Mahmoud.
Yeah. He was ahead of his time because of the way that he could handle the basketball and you couldn't touch him. Back then, we had physical rules in the game where we could hand check you. Well, you really couldn't do that with Mahmoud because of how quick he was with the basketball. He didn't really give you an opportunity to put your hands on him.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why he was ahead of his time.
Right on. And how do you think you'd fit into today's game?
Oh, I love it. I mean, it'd be easy to score because, I was a slasher and an aggressive offensive player. And when you have players like that, they thrive in the league today because you just, like I mentioned before, you just can't touch the guys.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easy to get to the basket. It's easy to get open shots. So, I would love to play in today's game.
Do you think it's gotten soft?
Yeah, because they've taken the physicality out of it, because they allow the guys to travel. And, it's not, I'm a basketball purist. So it's not, I don't like it because it gives the offensive man so many different advantages over the defensive man.
Interesting. All right. Well, let's go the other way then. What players from today's game do you think would fit in and be just as dominant in the 90s then?
I think Westbrook would. I think LeBron would. Kevin Durant would. Kyrie. Let me see. Derrick Rose. Because all these guys, all these guys are physical guys.
Right.
That I'm talking about. James Harden would still be good, but he wouldn't be like he is now because he's not particularly fast.
Right.
He's just tricky. And you would be allowed to hand check him. So he wouldn't be able to get away with the stuff that he gets away with now, because of the hand checking. But there are some players that would be just as dominant though.
Yeah, Harden
today.
Harden's definitely an interesting guy with the I don't want to call it gimmicky, but maybe I do. He's very good at manipulating the rules, manipulating some of those calls. I feel like a little Reggie Miller in there. He's just a master at getting the line.
Yeah, he's master at getting to the line. And, also, too, when you have a superstar status and you score a lot of points, the refs are prone to give you most of the calls anyway. When you go to the basket, all you have to do is sneeze, and they'll give you a
Yeah.
call, and you can go to the line. So, Michael Jordan was like that.
Right on, right on. All right. Well, let's talk about some of your greatest memories. It could be a game, it could be a moment. But when you look back on your career, what are the first stories that come to mind?
When I scored the first basket of my NBA career, I remember that like it was yesterday. I shot a jump shot at the top of the key over Patrick Ewing.
Okay.
And I remember the arena was kind of smoky because it was the first game of the season. They had put fireworks in the building, and things had gone off like that. So also when I set the steals record, that was a great day for me. And playing in the playoffs in the Boston Garden, my third year in the
Okay.
league.
Okay.
It was so hot in there. And I had heard all the stories about the Garden, the leprechauns, and all that. And here you're playing in this storied arena, and you see the court has dead spots in it and everything, but it was a great place to play. So, I really cherished that moment.
Right on. Yeah, that's actually at the top of my bucket list. I got to go see
Hmm.
a game in the Garden. Uh,
Yeah.
I got to see MJ in DC. I've seen some games in Milwaukee and then Chicago and plenty of Nuggets games, but I'm hoping that Boston could be next. And especially, you talk about the Leprechaun. I wish I could go back in time and play in the original Garden, just the history in that. Were there any players you looked up to growing up?
Uh, well, I looked up to players like Walter Payton here in
Okay.
Chicago. Walter Payton, and I didn't really look up to many basketball players. Fighters like Muhammad Ali, Sugar Ray Leonard, fighters like that. Um, but when I came into the league, the only basketball player I can tell you I was in awe of was Magic Johnson.
Okay.
He was the only one, and I was taken aback when the first time that I played against Magic, because I couldn't believe how big he was
Right.
and how well he dribbled the basketball and the command he had over his team, things like that.
Magic Johnson, one of those guys like a LeBron James, you could say, or a Giannis. I don't know if Giannis quite has it, but one of those guys who can play all five positions. And
Hmm.
do you consider that when you're, I guess, rating your greatest players of all time? A lot of people say, LeBron James is the GOAT because he's more versatile than Mike, maybe. Then other people are going to say, well, Mike won the 6 championships and he was a better pure scorer. And so
Mm.
a little bit of a two-legged question here. What goes into your qualifications for being the greatest player of all time, and who's on that short
Whether
list for you?
greatest player of all, with my certification is whether you can um, fill the stat sheet, win championships, win conference, win finals MVP, um, and whether you can also regular season MVPs, all defensive teams. See, when people talk about LeBron, I don't think you can put him in the conversation because you have to be part of the 6-5 club. And that's 6 championships and at least 5 MVPs.
Mm,
It's only 2 players that do that. That's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Michael Jordan. So until LeBron gets to that level, he's not even in the conversation.
okay.
You know, that's how I feel about it. Now, I feel Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is the greatest player of all time because from high school to college to pro, there is nobody that touches his resume.
Right.
Nobody.
Yeah.
I believe Michael Jordan is the greatest NBA player of all time.
Okay.
Okay. It took me a long time to come to that conclusion because I always would say Kareem because, quite frankly, Kareem's stats are just as good as Michael's in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
But I give Michael the edge because of the commercial appeal that he had, and he made the sport crossover and international. He
Okay.
transcended the sport. So that's why I give Michael the edge. But if I had to draft, if there was a draft and Michael Jordan and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar were sitting there, I don't know who I would take number one.
Yeah. I mean, you can't go wrong there.
Yeah, you can't go wrong.
Yeah, one of the things I think about Kareem, he'd probably be just as dominant as another ahead of his time guy, somebody with feet like that, and somebody who is way ahead of his time as far as conditioning goes. From what I've learned, he got into Bikram yoga, extends his career by 10 years. People weren't even doing that except maybe Phil Jackson.
Right, yeah. You're right about Phil. Yep, 100%.
Right on, man. Well, I'll let you get going pretty soon here, but first I got to ask you a couple predictions as far as the NBA season goes. What do you think is going to be the NBA Finals matchup this year?
I predict the Brooklyn Nets versus the Los Angeles Lakers in the finals, with Brooklyn winning it.
Ooh, okay, that's a hot take.
I'm gonna be a contrarian. I'm going against everybody else.
I mean, I'm actually right there with you. I was actually saying before that trade that I thought maybe Brooklyn matches up better than anyone, but a lot of that had to do with the versatility defensively you have with Jared Allen and DeAndre Jordan. And then that's probably your best combo, stopping a guy like Anthony Davis when you have the quickness of Allen and then the brute strength, kind of an old school rim protector in DeAndre Jordan. But yeah, it's certainly interesting. They're having some trouble tonight against the Cleveland Cavaliers, but that's probably, those guys just trying to mesh. Yeah,
they're just trying to mesh. I mean, it's the first day Kyrie is back. As a matter of fact, I have it on right now. It's 1.5 seconds left and they're tied. But it's gonna be difficult for them at first, but they have to find the happy medium, especially between Kyrie Irving and James Harden, as far as who's going to handle that basketball at the end of the game. Yeah.
Well, when you got to force the defense to play any of those guys one-on-one and you take away the ability to help, that's just nightmares all over the floor.
It's going to be tough.
What about MVP and Defensive Player of the Year?
Defensive Player of the Year, that's yet to be seen. I don't know who's my front runner so far, but MVP, I like Steph Curry.
Okay.
Steph has been really playing well, and if he can get his team into the playoffs without Clay, the way that he's been playing, I like Steph Curry because no player is more valuable to his team than he is right now.
As long as you're bringing up Klay Thompson, I got maybe the hottest take of all time, so I got to get your thoughts on it. So I've gotten into this. I have another podcast called Running with the Bulls, and I've gotten into this argument many times with my co-host Reed. But I keep saying I'd rather have Klay Thompson than James Harden. My reason being that you have this league where you have elite ball handlers, right? And they're going to create plays all over the floor. But I think it's more rare to have a guy who doesn't need the ball in his hands, who's super elite off the ball, and can get you 50 points with 11 dribbles. So if you're trying to construct a team, would you rather have a Klay Thompson or would you rather have a James Harden? And why would you make your decision?
I'd rather have a Klay Thompson all day long.
Okay.
Because you just said it. He doesn't have to dominate the basketball in order to be successful. And I believe in team play. So I believe in everybody touching the basketball. Yeah, we have to have a guy that you can throw it to that can get you a shot when you need one. But I don't believe in a guy dominating the basketball and sitting there dribble, then finally goes in for a shot. That throws the whole team out of rhythm. And what Klay allows you to do is he doesn't need the basketball all the time, but everybody else touches it and everybody else gets into the flow of the offense.
Now you're talking my language. I gotta send that clip to Reed, man. He's gonna be pissed. It's gonna be
definitely send it to him.
Right on, man. Well, we always got to wrap up the show giving a quick shout out to our graphic designer, Evan Butris, the Wax Cowboy. You can find him on Instagram. And for the people who don't already follow you on the Instagram, on Twitter, where can they follow you?
You can follow me at official Kendall Gill on Instagram. On Twitter, you can find me at Kendall G13.
Awesome, Kendall. Well, thank you so much for hopping on the show with me. Very fun talking hoops with you. and hopefully we'll do it again soon. Tell Josh I said what's up, and maybe we'll get in a sparring session this summer. All right, man?
Okay. All right. Good deal. Take care, man.
All right. Take it easy, Kendall. Peace.
All right.
This is McSwap Production.